I'm Vanessa. I work for the Eve Appeal and I work in the fundraising department. The Eve Appeal is the only gynae cancer charity which basically fund research for the 5 gynae cancers. I would let my colleague Karen tell you all about the 5 gynae cancers in a second, but basically that's what we do, and we've been doing it since 2002, and it's amazing.
Hi everybody, my name is Karen and I also work at the Eve Appeal. I work on the information and awareness side, so opposite the office to Vanessa, even though we're still friends. It was de temps en temps, she's French. So I was speaking French, by the way, I wasn't being rude to my colleague. And I'm 27 now, and when I was 24 I was diagnosed with cervical cancer and started writing about it and performing stand-up comedy about it, and through blogs and articles connected with the Eve Appeal, and they said, do you want a job talking about it and helping other people? And I was like, yes, I want to be on Facebook Live in January. Yeah. So first of all, because the room's been quite quiet, let's name the 5 gynae cancers. So just shout out a gynae cancer and we're going to do all 5. Ovarian, cervical, yeah. Womb, yeah. 2 more. We've had cervical. So we've got cervical, womb and ovarian. We've got ovarian, so 2 more. Labia, well, yeah, but what do you call the labia? You call it the vulva and vagina. Yay! Yay! Woo! I can't believe we got to the last talk without saying the word vagina. Look how many are in the room. So yeah, I work on the information and awareness, talking about all things vagina because it's important.
I'm Martha Silcott. I invented a Fab Little Bag, which is a funky disposal bag for sanitary items, so for pads and tampons. The guys have already hijacked it for their condoms, but there you go. So there's no stopping them. So I also talk vaginas all day, and it's quite a fun topic once you get started. Yeah, so that's what Fab Little Bag is all about. Well, I think David Attenborough did quite a good job with Blue Planet to really push it into every crevice of society rather than just, surfers against sewage or, fabulous environmental focus groups, so he did everyone a great favour there. I invented Fab Little Bag for 2 reasons, one of which was to stop the aquatic pollution caused by flushing. I'm not going to embarrass people in the room right now, but women are kind of either flushers or binners, just putting moon cuppers to one side for a second. And if you flush, I always have one on me. It's a bit crumpled because it's in my pocket. So this is Fab Little Bag, and you can open it with one hand, which is quite handy when you're holding a used tampon in the other, or you can just wrap up your pad as you would and plop it in there. Can I do a demo?
Yeah, I don't have a tampon in at the moment, so I don't.
Imagination. So you open it up. So it's a case basically of open, in, seal, and then it's ready to bin. And basically, sorry, I can take it now. Sometimes you go to the toilet and there's no bin. And then you've got to do the handbag smuggle. And the handbag smuggle, as the groans tell you, is pretty grim. So I was sat on the loo one day feeling really frustrated at this situation, doing the loo roll wrap for the 100th time and hating it, and thinking there must be a better way. So I really didn't want to be a flusher, so I was doing this loo roll wrap thing, but I hated it. So that's where this all came from. Back to your question about environmental. I think it's really just been petering along, and that's no disrespect to all the organisations that work tirelessly for it, but the beauty of social media and communication channels like that is that suddenly you can create a tidal wave, and I think that's what Blue Planet has done. And then all the petitions and organisations that are using social media for their voice to ban straws. The Last Straw campaign, awesome, and it's having great effect already on huge organisations, multinationals. Now, sending off a little email to Mr. or Mrs. CEO of, a big multinational is not going to have the same impact. So the power of social media is definitely there, but it's got to be followed up by action. And I think so far it's making a really huge impact on environmental causes.
I think, the internet and social media, as we've spoken about so much tonight, is fantastic, and I think that the issues and the need for things like women to go for smear tests, or organisations like Bloody Good Period and Free Period, who are providing sanitary items to people that can't afford them, us who are trying to raise awareness to make sure women go for their smear tests, that they know the signs and symptoms of the gynae cancers. The need for these people has always been there, but we're gradually, through seeing someone do it, we're encouraged on the internet and social media to do it ourselves. And then when we do it, our 5 million followers will see us do it, and then somebody else will see those videos. So I think it's about being as active as possible, putting in more effort than you can be bothered with a lot of the time, because it is exhausting to keep going on about the same thing every day, but not the same people will see it every day. Every day, someone different will see it. So if you affect one person every day, eventually we'll get there. So it's just about plugging away at the same message and sharing stories. Well, we were talking about this earlier, weren't we, with kind of how social media is affecting our business, but it feels weird calling a cancer charity a business. That sounds really greedy and creepy. No, it's a charity. So we were talking and saying that the followers that we have and the community who want to fundraise for us, they're normally people who have been affected either personally or had a gynae cancer in the family. And every individual who's watching and in this room has got their own network of people. So if you tonight go and tell one person about the Eve appeal, or say that abnormal bleeding is a sign of cervical cancer, then you're going to tell that person who will tell somebody. So it's about kind of continuing to know what the hashtag is. I think people with the Ice Bucket Challenge kind of just wanted to get in a bikini and like squeal. I wanted to, but I knew that it was because that temporarily frozen feeling is how somebody with the condition feels because of their muscles. You have to know what you're doing.
At the Eve appeal, we want to break taboos, and we want to explain why we're breaking taboos and what that means for women and men, actually, because also men are affected by cancers. Every man has a woman in his life he loves or cares about. So when she's affected by a gynae cancers, automatically will impact on him as well. So it's mainly getting the conversation going and using all those hashtags over and over again, and people pick up on it and they come back to us and say, actually, yes, that makes sense.
For me, on that note, because we have a hashtag Screw the Taboo, because we are just so aware in everything we do about how much periods is still a taboo in 2018. Bonkers, absolutely insane, but it is. And so I've come to the conclusion on my own kind of journey through this craziness that talking, that's why I'm here tonight and not at home with my kids, is absolutely crucial. And we just have to keep talking about it, whether it's got hashtags next to it, or whether it's with your friend over a cup of coffee, or even a stranger. If you kind of get chatting some random stranger, just keep talking about these issues. The more you talk, the less of a taboo it actually is. And involving men in conversation around periods is really crucial, because part of how women feel negatively about periods, part of that comes from how men react when the subject comes up or when it's an issue, whether that's kind of finger in the ear or run out the door or start, coming out with stupid phrases. We have to get over that, and the only way we're going to do that is to involve them in the conversation. So I think taboos, whether it's around, where the cancers are in your body or periods or whatever, just keep talking, hashtag or no hashtag. What we found out is that girls are starting their period earlier, part of that. There is no, I'm not sitting here as a scientist telling you the reason why, but what the evidence I can find is that it's all down to kind of growth hormones in dairy products and drinking milk and all that kind of stuff. And they're starting their periods at kind of 9. And so primary schools will have a percentage of children in their years 5 and 6 who are actually on their period. And yet primary schools, we did a survey of 200 in London, and 20% of them had no bin whatsoever in the toilets. So what on earth is that child meant to do? You're teaching them to flush and pollute the aquatic system at 9 years old. And that's kind of just the environmental side. The emotional, mental side is much more long-lasting in a damaging way. So we need to just normalise the norm. It is normal. It's a sign of normality to have periods. So let's just treat it that way.
Yeah, so I think obviously it's not going to be appropriate to tell a 9 and 10-year-old, once you've gone through the menopause, you're slightly more likely to get womb cancer and ovarian cancer. But it's about, as we were saying, normalising the language. So to ask parents when they're teaching their children about body parts, you can call it a flower or a fufu or a pansy for fun if you want to, but as long as she knows that it is also her vagina, and for language not to be surrounded by taboos. We can say the word penis and vagina because they're body parts. Like we can say head and breast, so why can't we say the rest of it? And I think if that 8, 9, 10-year-old knows the parts of her bodies and knows that it's okay to have a period and it's not embarrassing, she's probably a bit more likely to feel more comfortable when she starts, sexual interactions, and she's much more likely to read that letter for a smear test and know that it's important to look after her gynae health. So, yeah, when it's appropriate and in the right way, as young as possible, in the right way.
We do have a lot of ways people can get involved through fundraising, we have 2 big campaigns every year. One now in March for Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, where we do a fabulous fundraising activity called Make Time for Tea. And this year, WeTard is actually our official tea partner, and they will be doing Tea Party nationwide, worldwide next year, hopefully, on Thursday. So that's one of the ways to get involved, doing your own Make Time for Tea party. But we also have, the biggest campaign we have is in September for Gynae Cancer Awareness Month, where we talk about the 5 gynae cancers and why it's important to know them, to know the sign and symptom, to know what to say to your GP if you have any questions. So then come to us and we can actually help you with that, but mainly making money for us for the research, for prevention, detection, and prediction of the gynae cancers is through fundraising. So if you're interested in doing anything from skydiving to a tea party to a panel discussion, get in touch. There is also a donate button just above the screen, I guess. So yeah, click, and that would be, we would really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
And awareness, so again, we're going back to hashtags. We've got lots of hashtags through the Eve Appeal, things like hashtag know your body, hashtag know your normal, hashtag get bleeding checked. If you just kind of latch onto them, learn what they mean, kind of perhaps share a post, just take away like a little piece of information, a sign or symptom. We've got lots of kind of leaflets and literature around. And when it comes to our sort of main awareness months, if you see a story from somebody, from a similar background to you, we share lots of case studies. Kind of take a minute just to read that and to kind of learn what Jane said about her experience. Pass on a bit of information to your mum, to your friend. It's kind of about, again, we keep saying this, like breaking down the taboos, looking on social media, sharing as much as possible, and being comfortable with your body. We've talked a lot about body positivity, being comfortable with your body, knowing what's normal for you. So we all have, if we've got periods, our periods are all different. They'll look different to each other's. But if you spot something, for example, that's abnormal for you, just make a doctor's appointment. You might feel a little bit embarrassed, but believe me from personal experience, it is so worth going to the doctors rather than something really awful happening. I was lucky and only had stage 1 cervical cancer, but that was bad enough. So book that doctor's appointment if you think something is wrong for you.
I'm not a charity, so I can't say all those lovely things. I'm a business. But I can encourage you to become binners, because there are probably some flushers in the room who think it's just fine to flush tampons and they would never dream of flushing a sanitary towel. But it's not fine to flush tampons, people. They block the toilet. If they don't block the toilet, they join a fatberg, and fatbergs are bad. And actually a portion of them end up in the rivers and the oceans and back on the beaches, which is why it causes this environmental pollution. So be a binner. And if you don't like loo roll wrapping and handbag smuggling, then you can be a fabber. We do like fun subscriptions and stuff on the website for mother and daughters to encourage that conversation from a nice early age, and just make this conversation about disposal and binning really normal, because I've found that it's like the taboo within the taboo. Like there's periods as a taboo, and then there's like no one talks about how they get rid of this stuff. And I've had situations where, you know, fabbers and binners and flushers just don't know each other exists. Everyone thinks that everyone does what they do, and it's only when you start asking or maybe sharing a kind of nightmare story that happened to do with disposal, because I'm now like the period whisperer. People come up and tell me their innermost horror stories and just like get it off their mind. So I do have quite a lot of those, and with hindsight they're hysterical, but at the time they're just awful. So but sharing, talking, it's a similar theme throughout all the taboo subjects. The way to get round it is just to talk about it, and maybe not take yourself too seriously about these nightmare stories, and just have a giggle next time you're having a glass of wine with your bestie, and fess up, and then she'll probably tell you a horror story too. If you don't have a bin in your downstairs loo, get one.